Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 71, Pricing, UWD Update, Team to Retainers to Hourly, the $1 million agency goal. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast if you love business and real stories from the trenches. And after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share if we've earned it. Hit that notification bell too if you're on YouTube so you don't miss each episode. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. 3 guests in a row. It's time for a solo. It's time for Matt Levenhagen to take the stage and just talk to you. Today is hopefully what will be a valuable episode. It's going to be on pricing. Now, one of my most popular episodes is actually episode number 4, which was about pricing. It was about how you start low and you get to the high. And go check that episode out if you want, because I've only evolved from there. That kind of talked about how I got started, or how I looked at pricing over the years, and how I priced myself and hourly and by projects and all that stuff. So it should be an interesting episode. I haven't listened to it for a year and a half, but I'm sure it's still good. But this isn't like a topic that I actually necessarily like to talk about. It's funny because, there's a lot of people out there. I don't know if they're just the people that are selling make money stuff or whatever it is out there. I was immersed in that for years, absorbing that type of content. And I don't know if it's I don't necessarily like to talk about, I kind of reference that I'm relatively successful, but just in my little bubble, it's all in context, right? I'm not running a multi-billion-dollar business or anything, but in the context of my world, I'm doing pretty good, and I'm on a good path. We're increasing revenue each year, so that's good, right? We're in our 4th year. We're still doing that, and a lot's changed though since that 4th episode that I recorded. And I recorded that, I believe it would have been early 2020, I believe, that spring. I recorded several episodes that spring, and then I didn't record. And then I paused for 9 months and then picked it back up again in early 2021 last year. But I don't like talking about it. Because part of pricing is that the way I like to actually teach or instruct or give advice or whatever is to share my experience. So that's what I'm going to do, because I want to speak from my experience. And being the builders, we talk about things from the trenches. So I am in the trenches, and a big part of why I'm still alive as a business a big part of that is the pricing decisions. If I would have made the wrong pricing decisions along the way, I would not have been able to grow a team or do any of the things that I'm doing. I probably would have a real job somewhere, working for somebody else. So pricing, the reason I do want to talk about it is because it is critical to have some understanding or some framework around pricing, right? When I first started this agency, I actually took a course. The name is going to escape me, but it's not around anymore. I don't think it's being sold. But it was about agencies, and a big part of that was how to price yourself and create package services and stuff. So I actually use that as kind of a starting point to build my own packages, but my business has changed tremendously since then. So some of that stuff still is relevant to today, but I've grown outside of that. But yeah, so I feel like it's a super important topic, and I think that it's going to help a lot of people. So let's dive in, right? Let's talk a little bit about my evolution. Let's figure out, let's pick up where I left off there, right? In episode 4, and this is episode 71. Wow, what changed? And the biggest change that happened since that episode was building a team. I had thoughts around pricing back then that was in the context of I always did some from the first summer that I was in business. I would hire contractors to do some work for me here and there, not all the time. I was doing most of the work back in the early days. And so that episode was really, it was not me having any employees or anything like that. And so it was, yeah. So that's what's really evolved since then. And it changed my mind on a few things along the way, because one of the things that, and we'll talk about this, I'm going to get into hourly work, is that a lot of people are like, don't do hourly. Don't do hourly. Don't do hourly. There's a guy in the design world, graphic design, I think, to do logos and branding stuff, right? And I watch their videos here and there. I haven't for a while, but I used to watch them for a while. I was watching them all the time. And I like to learn from everybody. And big part of it was not charging hourly, and it's just out there. And do project-based, value-based pricing, all that good stuff. And I'm a believer in all of that. Yes. 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 But what I believe is that it's not one thing. Like in my business anyway. Again, we're talking about my business, how I've developed things and how things are continuing to develop. While I am a big believer in value-based pricing, and it's a component of a lot of what I do in terms of bidding, especially project-based. I do project-based. I haven't not done project-based. I do it. We have a variety of things that we do, but what's evolved is the fact that I think hourly pricing is. I'm getting ahead of myself, but hourly pricing is really, in the context of yourself, is bad, right? If that's all you do, because you only have limited hours yourself, right? And you can only go so high, right? There's going to be a rate in your industry where eventually people are not going to be buying, or the occasional person maybe, but I would imagine, right? So that's what's really changed my mind, though, is the team, because hourly changes, in terms of that team. But basically, so doing that was adding the team was a big thing. And as I started to bid on projects, I started hiring at the end of 2020. Because I got certain projects that needed it, and we were growing. So I needed to bring some employees on. They're international employees, be upfront here. I'm working on building a U.S. team, but in the beginning, my focus was 100% on international, Philippines, India, and getting some good developers. Because in my space, you can get really good developers and stuff, and people in those places. And So that was a big part of the focus, but still, even then, it doesn't matter what you're paying people or whatever. I started pricing things with them in mind, and I used a simple little thing in my head, a little trick in my head, where I would look at a project and I would say, if I have somebody else doing the work and looking at the worst case scenario. That's what I started pricing like that. What building those resources helping me into my bidding. And now I already had been at a decent, if you watch episode 4, I've already been at a decent hourly rate. So now I'm building that in though. And then my profit, right? What I need to make on top of that. But it also has to include my involvement because I'm actually still managing the projects, right? I'm still managing the team. So as that went on, I got to figure that stuff out, include everything in our pricing from R&D to, doing audits and all that other stuff. But, so the next thing in my evolution was at the end of 2020. And the reason I hired my first was because we got a recurring monthly gig that is still alive to this day. So, which is good. It's been a beautiful thing. But what I needed to do with it, I have a dedicated resource for that. So again, I'm building in that resource and needs to be my profit on top of that. That was a really good thing that happened to me. And then from there, through 2021, we got another and then another large monthly contract, which we still have to this day. So they started to build on each other. And now, one of the things that I kind of bring with me from my internet marketing days back in the 2000s, and there's a reason when I sold an ebook or something one-off, right? Sold a report, special report, or I did sold content back then. Why I would back end a membership is because I know, especially if you're just launching something, a few months later, that launch is over and you have no revenue. So you have to find a way to build that reoccurring revenue on the backside. Regardless of how you build that reoccurring income, it's really, really helpful because it creates a foundation and it levels things out, right? So my reoccurring is now a big chunk of my income. I still do all this other stuff, one-off stuff on top of it, hourly, project-based, all that. But I have this layer of reoccurring income every month that's predictable. And that's important to have in your business, is predictability in terms of money coming in. It helps a lot. So that was a huge thing. I don't know where I'd be at right now if that type of thing didn't happen. And the other thing that kind of evolved with that is I basically introduced a new type of service, and it's maintenance based. Not all my monthly contracts are maintenance related. Some of it's just development related, but there was this maintenance component. Like we have maintenance contracts, custom maintenance contracts where we do beyond maintenance, but that doesn't matter. But one of the things that did for me is between that and then kind of narrowing our vertical, figuring out who we're selling to, and that kind of really came together last year in 2021. Really figure out this is who we're working with, which was agencies and this type of business, e-commerce stores kind of business. So figuring that out, like who our direct clients were and who are, working with agency partners and kind of building that side of the business. And between that, I mean, last year was our first year that we went into 6 figures in revenue. Okay. And which blew me away. Like, there we go. There's my reoccurring income. And it's not even like unpredictable because the 6-figure portion, the base is above 6 figures of that reoccurring. So I have that predictable monthly base income at that. So then anything else on top of that obviously builds on that. But so that, when that happens though too, is suddenly you have this this ability to now have that predictable income so you can build your team. And that all happened like all at once, which was a beautiful thing. All of that was also possible because of how I price things. I did not do things on the cheap. Like I'm a little bit more of a premium service. So I'm able to bring more to the plate. I can put a dedicated resource on a project and to help a client. And I'm still there. I may be there to support that or do my own things with that client. I do, generally speaking. I'll have every major client we have has some kind of dedicated resource, at least part-time, to that client to do maintenance or whatever. And then I'll come in and I still do, the work in between, or it's a team effort, right? But from that though, okay, so that formed this base that just really happened. And if you're in a business and whether it's an agency or whatever it is, man, if you can find a way to target or kind of form this service or whatever that you can provide this, create this reoccurring. I had talked to a buddy of mine this past year, and I let him know that the other thing we're doing is we're actually starting to develop plugins, WordPress plugins, to sell as a product. And he gave me a nice his experience with that, because he's done it as well and it made a ton of money with it. But his thing was just make sure that there's a reoccurring, basically an annual license or something reoccurring to help you support that product long term. Because again, sell it and then you get all this support and you have no way to maintain that or be able to, that's if you're for or against, an annual license on software or whatever. I mean, you should be for it because it ensures that company is not going to go out of business and they're going to be able to support your software for a longer period of time. So that's always in my mind, right? But now let's talk about hourly work. So one of the things that has been on my mind for years, because everyone, like I said, people I've listened to and look up to, respect, whatever, don't do hourly work, get away from it. It actually happened opposite. I felt like I did go away from it and I suddenly started doing more of it. But for me, I think it really depends, right? I think there's some truth to it that you like, especially if you're a solo and you're a freelancer, that doing things on an hourly basis can be destructive and that you won't have the potential for the income that you could have. But it's not bad in certain scenarios. And for me, as I had a team, I could allot certain hours to certain resources, and then I'm as a business person, I got to make sure I'm making money on top of that. So as long as I'm making money on top of that and they're tracking their hours and we can figure that out, we have formulas to figure this stuff out, that's not business I need to turn away. And sometimes hourly is connected to a project. So we may let's say we have a maintenance contract and it's a monthly contract. And then we have allotted hours and we go over that. We have excess hours that we put in, then we can charge for that on top of it. We've also done hourly packages where we will, for 20 hours or 50 hours at a time, the client will pay that up front and then we just work through it and then we invoice them when we're through that. That's a way to structure it. So it's kind of like, it's just, you're still hourly, but it's you can actually also discount because of that. It seems like the more predictable something is, right, the cheaper it can get. Like if somebody's going to give me $3,000 or $5,000 a month or more for a maintenance contract each month, the hourly on that will work out a lot less than if we just do, a couple hours at a time Then we're at our $80, $100 plus per hour. So that's the thing, so hourly is actually still a part of our business. The other thing is, we just actually added another agency partner, and our first project is a large project. In fact, it's up there. It's a large project. It's going to take months. I gave an estimate of time, and we did all our upfront estimating of what's this going to take and stuff, and it's just hourly based. Was I going to turn that business away? Was I not going to, as long as you work out the numbers and it's not just you doing it, it can work. Talk to me in 5 years. We'll see if that's still the case. No, I cracked myself up. Okay. So all of that, I think it's definitely, I felt like this would be a good episode in terms of just bringing everyone up to speed that maybe had listened to that episode. I would imagine, even though it was one of my more popular, you probably haven't. Go back and listen to that. You can see the evolution, how this all ties in here. It's been an interesting journey. Like I said, if you go back to that episode, I started out, when I was a freelancer, this is 10 years ago, I was charging like $15, $25 an hour for my services, like really low. But I also didn't feel like I had enough experience, and I also just needed to get projects. So you start low, and then over time you leverage that, and you're able to start, providing services for more and more. When I came out, like I talked about in that episode, when I came out of my last job, like the only job I've had like many, many decades, couple decades. When I came out of that job as a web developer, I now had the experience. I felt that I needed to charge more than 25. And then I was like, I kind of set this, I'm not going to do anything for under $40 an hour. That's where I started. And then I easily got that. And then I've raised it since then. And then, like I said, then the team. And then all of a sudden I got these monthly contracts I'm able to attract. and that reoccurring income. And that came into play. All of that was just built on each other. That the hourly stuff and being able to increase that increased my revenue over time. And I was able to, and that obviously dictated what type of clients I was getting over time. So that changed and evolved. And then, now the recurring, and then, like I said, I'm now being able to do hourly in this structure that we have. So that's where I am from a pricing perspective. If I was going to say there was a lesson in all that, it's just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. If you have to start low to get projects and experience and build your portfolio, do that. And slowly over time, that will evolve and you'll be able to start charging more. Don't be afraid of doing hourly stuff if it makes sense. If it's not just you. I did hourly, but I was also always looking for project based. But I never said no to hourly. I offered it, as part of my services. But I guess my goal, a year or 2 years ago, a couple of years ago, was to get away from hourly completely because that's what I heard. I didn't do that. It's just part of what we do. So and maybe the lesson there too is that you're going to evolve, but also to be flexible and just let it organically happen. So now I wanted to end with this, like, where am I headed? What's next? Like, honestly, probably, I don't, number one, like talking about monetary stuff, but I also don't like my goals to be tied to money. Like, I want, I know it sounds corny and everybody says it, you want to be happy, right? You want to be happy doing what you're doing. So that's kind of, I have to enjoy coming to work every day. So that's huge for me. But I probably had like some kind of mental, what part of for me is of my age, right? I'm in my early 50s, I'm 51 years old. So I know this is my last hurrah. This is it. Everything I've done, all the mistakes I've made in my life and all the experiences I've gained, all kind of converge right now. And I have to do it because in 10, 20 years, I'm probably going to be old. So with that in mind, yes, I know that I in this endeavor that I do want to grow a business to a certain point of revenue. And that probably one of those first milestones was build it into a 6-figure business. And so what are my next milestones and what is my end goal? For me, and this is just for me, if I build an agency that's $1 million agency, that's what we bring in for revenue every year. And that's what this is in context. That's what 6 figures is, not per month. But I will be. But I'm giving myself this, like 10 years, 15 years. I don't care if it takes me, because I love what I do and I'm happy with where I'm at. I just will keep doing what I'm doing. And if it takes 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to tell you, I probably, it took me 3 years to get where I am now. I'm actually feel like I'm ahead of schedule. I truly do. And I also feel like what we're doing is working. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And that includes everything else we're doing. If you see us on social media, this podcast, the networking we're doing, how we're marketing our business is working. I talk to my VA, I have a virtual assistant, and I periodically, I'm like, I'll point something out. I'm like, if we weren't doing what we're doing on social media, we wouldn't have got that piece of business. That's happened multiple times. Not small pieces of business, really good relationships, really good partnerships or contracts happened because we're on social media and putting out the content we are. So that's something we may scale, but we're going to keep it at least at the level it's at, right? So if I keep doing that, I feel good about what our future is. And to build that $1 million agency, I got to work my way through the hundreds. I'm going to work my way. I see it all. I see the steps to $1 million. If I fall a little short, I fall a little short. Let's see where it goes. But I think, kind of circling back to what the topic is here, I feel like my pricing strategy has worked and that it's simple. I didn't overthink it. Creating, productized services, all those things helped. Figuring out what my vertical was. There's a lot of things that play into it too, even beyond pricing. But pricing is so important. Will I increase price? What in the next couple of years, from a pricing perspective, maybe this will be the next episode next year about pricing. There is a potential that I will raise my prices. I may raise my hourly. I may raise just the project-based, the packages that we sell, the maintenance. That is going to be dependent on, I do have like a kind of a cap of the size of agency I want to build. And there's going to be a point, there's two things for sure. So there's going to be a cap on the number of clients. I'm going to reach a number. I have it in my head. I'm going to reach that number. And then from that point, if I take on another client, we probably will cut out somebody, because I want to be able to maintain a certain level of service and quality in what we're doing. The other thing is that within that, there will be eventually we'll hopefully grow out of that. It's something I've kind of picked up this last year that I'm going to do is have a minimum engagement. So per year, how much work we're doing for somebody from a monetary perspective, right? And we're also going to be doing products. So that's part of this thing too. My hope is we're building unified plugins and the unified toolkit that plays into this too. I don't know how big I can build that, but that's kind of a side gig that will eventually hopefully become more prominent in terms of what the money we're making, and hopefully we can grow the two together, because that's going to actually be something we use in-house to build stuff for clients, and then sell independently. So that's where I'm at. So from $0 to making, a couple dollars per hour, to, my journey of gaining experience and increasing my prices and charging enough, not being cheap, to getting that reoccurring income, to, embracing hourly because why not? All that, it's just been an amazing journey. And I hopefully you found this insightful, helpful. Again, I'm not the type of person that wants to talk about this, and or I feel like I'm bragging. I don't know if I feel like I'm bragging. I'm not bragging, but what trumps that for me, maybe I should use that word. What overrides that for me is that I hopefully this will inspire and maybe even serve as kind of a guide for somebody else. And maybe it'll generate some questions. If you're listening to this and you got a question about that, you want to, kind of follow up with me on social media, wherever we post this, or on our blog. If you want to ask questions about that or comment on it, always feel free to do that, because I'm here to, that's kind of my way to give back, is this content. Of course, it has like a marketing component to it, but at the same time, I'm doing it because I enjoy helping others and sharing my journey, and hopefully you learning from that journey as I share things from the trenches and what's working for me. Until next time. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.